He looked into my eyes like he'd been searching for years, and I couldn't bring myself to say I wasn't her. He wheeled himself up to the hospital reception desk with trembling hands and whispered a name that wasn't mine, Alia. And in that split second where time slowed, I could have corrected him, should have corrected him. Told him my name was Zara, that I was just covering the night shift for my sister who'd gone into labor early, that I wasn't a nurse, wasn't his friend, wasn't anyone he thought I was. But something in his eyes made the truth stick to the back of my throat like an unswallowed pill. Because the way he looked at me, like he'd been waiting years to breathe again, shattered my logic and stitched guilt right into my skin. And instead of the truth, I gave him a smile so unsure it must have looked like memory, and I nodded once, and that was all it took. The lie became real in his heart before I could gather mine, and by the time I realized what I'd done, he was already telling me how long he'd been gone. 2 years in a recovery center after the crash. 2 years of forgetting pieces of himself until a blurry picture of us came back, until he remembered Alia's laugh in a hospital. And when he saw me, he thought fate had brought her back too. And I should have stopped it, truly I should have, but he was in so much pain and I was so damn lonely. And I told myself it was just for tonight, just until his brother arrived. In the morning, just until someone came and put the truth back in its place, but no one came. And the next morning, he looked at me like sunrise, called me his miracle, and the nurse beside me whispered, "That's David Gresham, ex-RF, lost his fiancée in the crash. Poor soul still talks to her in dreams," and my knees nearly buckled because that name, David, had once been on every news channel after the accident that killed 3 and left him with a shattered spine and scrambled memory. And the fiancée he'd lost was Alia Rahman, a trauma nurse who used to work on the same floor I now stood on. And suddenly the pieces made a horrifying picture. I was in her place, behind her desk, near her patients, her corridors, her perfume still lingering in the staff room lockers, and this man, this grieving, broken man, thought I was her ghost come home. And instead of correcting him, I asked if he was hungry and made him tea, and sat by his bed as he told me stories that weren't mine, but started to feel like they could be, and one day became 2, and then a week. And by the time I tried to confess, he was drawing sketches of us in a notebook with trembling hands, telling the physio he had something to live for now, that Alia's eyes were watching him again. And I know it was wrong, cruel even, but in some twisted way, we both needed the lie. He needed her to survive, and I needed someone to see me like I was worth staying for, even if it wasn't truly me. So I leaned in gently, like guilt was perfume, and I let him hold my hand. And when he finally stood again after 6 months of rehab, the first person he walked to was me, whispering, "See? You were always my reason," and I nodded with a smile so cracked it nearly bled, and I told myself every night that I'd end it. Tomorrow, next week, just not today. Until one day I found a photograph tucked in his drawer, a photo of the real Alia, and the world froze. Because she didn't just look like me, she was me, or rather, I was her echo, same olive skin, same black curls, same gap between the top teeth. And in that instant, I realized why fate had played this cruel trick, why he thought I was her. Because we were twin flames on different timelines, and maybe the universe had given him me to say goodbye properly, and I nearly convinced myself it was poetic, not manipulative. But then he kissed me, and it was so full of history. Hadn't lived that I broke, pulled away, and finally told him, "I'm not Alia. I never was," and silence swallowed us like a storm. He stared at me as if I'd stolen something sacred, and when I tried to explain, he just whispered, "Why would you do that to me?" And I had no answer except the truth, that I had fallen in love with a lie too, and by the time it became real, it was already too broken to be beautiful. He didn't yell, didn't cry, just turned his chair around and left. And the next day, he was gone from the ward, transferred to another facility. No note, no number, just silence. And for weeks, I couldn't sleep, haunted by the echo of someone else's name in my mouth until one cold March morning. I got a letter in handwriting I memorized. Thank you for getting her back to me. Even if just for a while, David. And I wept so hard I shook the sofa, not because I lost him, but because he forgave me for something I hadn't even forgiven myself for. I never saw him again, but sometimes in the quietest hours, I still hear him say her name in my voice and wonder if love, real love, can ever be borrowed without cost. Because I didn't steal Elia's place, I just borrowed her goodbye. And maybe, just maybe, he needed to believe in her long enough to learn how to let her go.